You get to talk yourself all the time. So we're
Oh,
streaming now. We are streaming now. So I will close my Tumblr window and is my sound device is set correctly. So I'm gonna start the intro music. For whatever reason, I cannot screen share. So we'll only have the music. And I will read what's on the screen. In conversation with Fern and Pete. And today also with two amazing, wonderful guests. I don't even know if that works with me talking over the music. So my camera is on. Hello and welcome. After this delay of 26 minutes, we had some technical problems like usual. No, not like usual. Last time we didn't have technical problems, but this time we had technical problems again. But now we're streaming. There are a lot of people on the chat already. But before we go to the chat, welcome to In Conversation 21 on November 17th, I think, is today. Yeah, November 17th, 2018. With me on the show, well, usually, and well, we have to do it differently today because ladies first. Of course, two wonderful, amazing guests. Jennifer, Nature Lover 69 on Tumblr. You will find the link, of course, in the post and in the description of the video. And Carol, and
Hi.
I forgot your blog's name, your new blog's name.
It's Reality Beauty Capturer.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't even know that you're back on Tumblr. See, I would like to read that because I have to say, Carol's blog, back then, the old blog was one of the first blogs that I followed when I started.
Oh, really?
Yes. Your blog, Kate's blog, Kate Rieke, and Monica's blog, Mojo 5050. One of the three first blogs that I started to follow. And of course, also Fernando, Dr. Fern, QBN Scholar, admin of Luxlit.net and Luxlit.tumblr.com. And yeah, my name's Pete. I like pictures. And there's a thing. If we want to compare...
Hold on. And what reblog site are you part of?
Oh, right. I forgot. Right. I'm one of the admins of Photos Worth Seeing on Tumblr.com. Yeah. That's it. If we want to or can compare photography with magic, then usually if it's just Fern and me, we're not the pen and teller. We're rather the pen and pen. Today we will hopefully a bit teller and not talk so much because we have our two wonderful guests today on the show. And since it was Fern's idea, Fern will surely introduce today's topic. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, I know. That's actually what I said. That's actually what I said. So good. Yes. So here's the thing. When I don't know if either one of you two saw this, but well, Carol, by the way, is it Carol or Carol?
Carol. But
Carol.
It's okay. As long as I understand that you talk to me, I'm fine.
Okay.
No, because it's Carol, but here in Holland they say Carola, so whatever.
Oh, I get. Yes. Oh, I totally get it. All right. So a while back, I want to say about 3 months ago, Frederick Ardley, who you might know as Freddie Ardley, who mostly is very well known for his gorgeous nature photography. One of the people that I think eventually or early on became Tumblr famous for his photography. And he's still going strong as a photographer. And he posted, and I can't remember who it was that shared the post from our group of people who are active in our section of Tumblr. I think it was Amy. But he posted a text post basically, where's the community, how things have changed, blah blah blah. And there was a young woman, and I can't for the life of me, I couldn't find it, but I remember there was, I'm assuming it was a young woman, there was a photographer who posted that, the basically, where were the women, that they had been trying to you post, their photography, and that women weren't present. And what struck me was that it was Amy, I think it was Amy again, who shared the post on Let's Talk Photography, and then half of the comments at least were of women photographers on Tumblr. And then what I started to think about was the fact that, and I keep thinking about this since that came up, is that we in Tumblr, I think, have a huge presence of women photographers. And does that reflect the reality? What's going on with women photographers? Where are the women? And that's what I keep thinking every once in a while. Where are the women in photography? And again, something else that this has been sticking in my for a couple of years now. I remember reblogging. I think it was Canon or Nikon, one of the two larger companies. But I know it was some photography, video of four photographers being given cameras and going out and doing this adventure of photographing, blah blah blah, and it was four men. And I remember posting, there's no women photographers that do this kind of thing. And I remember one of the comments, and it's saying, I'm assuming it was a guy, oh, it's just a commercial, blah blah blah. And then I also remember Nurnielfa commenting back, no, it's not just the commercial. It's it's an issue that's important because of where are the women, basically, and that's where it comes from.
Here we are, Fern. We are everywhere.
Exactly. So you hit it. How do you feel, both of you, as women who photograph? Do you feel represented? Do you feel heard? Do you have models as women photographers who you see are as valued as men photographers?
Absolutely. Well, but I can only talk about what I see here in Holland because I live in the Netherlands. But I see a lot of women who are successful in photography. Or if I go to, for example, we went together to Foam, the photo museum in Amsterdam, and the entire crew, all the people who work there are women. I think there is just one man who worked there. And I see also a lot of exhibition of women photographer. And I particularly like a lot the work of Désirée Dolleron. She's a fine art photographer, a Dutch woman. But also currently there is an exhibition in Museum Hilversum from Carla van de Puttelaar. She also has a lot of exposure, a little bit everywhere in the world. So I think there are a lot of women who photograph. And actually, I must say, because I thought about it, but is there really, are women photograph, do they have a different approach than men? I don't know. Can you tell from a photograph, was the photo made by a man or a woman? I don't know. I don't think so. What do you think? Jennifer or Pete?
Yeah, Jennifer.
Yes. I would say I'm with you, Fern. When I first seen that come up, I was very shocked by it because I had found on Tumblr that there are a lot of women. So I was very shocked by that. Where are all the women in photography as well? I find a lot of women in photography, but for the most part, the photography that I'm around is pretty much Tumblr. So Yeah.
So to Carol's question, how do you feel about what Carol just brought, or Carol just brought up, that that
Love
that
you,
it's
Fern. Okay, focus now.
No, I just wanted to explain. Go. Sorry, Jennifer.
Would I be
No.
able to tell the difference in between a man shooting and photographer just by
Yes.
image? Very interesting, because I'm not sure that I could. Maybe on certain images, but as a whole, I think it's the artists themselves, and whether male or female, it's still going to be different. So that's very interesting.
Well, you know what you just made me think of? One of my favorite photographs is Imogen Cunningham's lilies. There's a couple of photographs of her. Imogen Cunningham was one of the original up-and-coming photographers back in, I want to say, the turn of the century and maybe a little later, just in case for any of you out there who may not know. And her photos of flowers, but specifically of the lilies, there's one that's just about line and shape, which is really what I'm interested in photography. And interestingly enough, several decades later, Robert Mapplethorpe, who's very well known. There we go. Who's very well known for his homoerotic pictures, but really, I think those photos, for the most part, are dull. One of my favorite pictures by him, aside from the Patti Smith images, is the same. It's almost not exactly the same, because I don't want to say he copied her, but it's the same kind of thing. So how do you tell whether it's a man or a woman? And then just the other day, so here's to add on to your question. The other day, I shared an article on Luxlit about a woman, the street photographer, and her experiences, and how she actually did talk about, in a way, how being a woman can be good, but can also be, a negative, depending on the situation and so on. But she felt that people were usually more open to her as a street photographer because they felt less threatened because she's a woman. Yeah. Thoughts?
Yeah. No, but I heard that already from my teacher at the Photo Academy, because he had an assignment for a newspaper here. And he went in a public park this summer to photograph people who were laying on the ground. And he took his girlfriend, who is also a photographer. And he told us it was much easier. People were much more open because I was with a woman. So, yeah, it made it easier for him.
Jennifer, what do you think?
I would say it would be much easier for a little bit more access into personal moments or different things like that. Might be, I could say I would maybe have an advantage over a man in that situation as a photographer. Yes.
Okay, Pete, what do you think? You're a guy. Well, at least we think you're human, so let's
that has to be proven still. I think, well, it's already quite loaded, what we are talking about. And I think we have to first make two distinctions. Number one, I mean, I think we have to make one thing very clear. What we first and foremost, or well, no, not even that. Let me start again. I think there's two different approaches how to talk about the whole subject. Number one is really, because when we are talking about Tumblr, most of us who are on Tumblr sharing their photos online, just like I don't know about you, Carol, but at least I know Fern, I know Jennifer, I know that I myself and I, me myself and I, we just do that for we're kind of hobbyist photographers. So there's no professional approach to that. At least in my case, at least nothing that I show on Tumblr is in any way or on the web is in any way something that is meant to be. Well, no, but it's hard because we're not less serious than other artists who don't live off their art. So, okay, delete what I said before.
Okay.
I think. Thank you. Um, so what one thing, the difference, do you see a difference, or can we see a difference between photos made by male photographers or female photographers, by men photographers or women photographers? I don't think so, that we can see from a photo itself. It's probably rather the subject. But the subject is, on the other hand, a thing that is very much influenced by the circumstances, by the society we grew up in and we live in. So I think if we historically, it would be very interesting, and we talked about that quite extensively when we had Christina on the show. About the whole liberation aspect of photography, when photography started to become affordable, because at that time many women were financially dependent on their husbands, which I personally think it's a great achievement that we had in the last centuries, that this is not necessarily the case anymore. It's still in some parts still there yet, and but it's not nowadays. It's rather, at least in our Western world nowadays, rather a matter of choice rather than not really. I'm aware of that, but it has become more of a choice than it was, say, like 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago. And so, and then let's face it, photography has become much more affordable. So you can do that just quote unquote as a hobby. And so I think that helped also a lot, that women got more attention, and then sharing their art online is another way. What possibilities would we all have to share our art if it wasn't for the web? So yes, of course, that we could like make photo albums or photo books and make exhibitions, but the scale is amazing. And I also see that we have in this Tumblr photo community a huge amount of women, which I personally think it's amazing. And being part, or having been part of a blog like Photos Worth Seeing, when you are able to accompany people in general over years sometimes, and see how they develop and what they this is brilliant, and that's my personal observation. I don't say that it is like that, but that's how I saw that, how I felt that. Maybe I looked in the wrong way. I absolutely agree with that. But I see more when I see men photographers. I don't want to use the term male or female in that context, but man photographers, I never saw this huge amount of change in their work and development in their work than I saw with a lot of women that I got to know on Tumblr via the photo scene, and seen their work. And this I think it's amazing to see that. So Yeah, where did I start? I think.
So,
But it's the same on Instagram. I was really, I'm much more active on Instagram than Tumblr. I'm back now on Tumblr after a break, and there are really a huge amount of photographers who are women. But there have always been women in photography. I was in London at the Victoria and Albert Museum recently because they open now a special space for photography, which is a nice recognition for this. And there were a lot of women who were exposed, and I wrote the name of one, Anne Wardrop Brickman, who made really, she used the photography also as a statement to liberate, to show the body, and on her way to liberate women. It's also an act of feminism. But I guess women has been involved with photography since the beginning.
well, it's interesting you say that because Netflix, I just watched, there's a Netflix, dear God, there's a Netflix documentary. I think it's only on Netflix. Feminists, what were they thinking? And the reason I bring it up is because it's based on a book of photographs of feminists and women. I don't necessarily want to say that they were feminists from the 70s. And it includes, you know, a lot of the famous scholars. It includes Jane Fonda, who's always been a feminist, and Lily Tomlin, who's also been a feminist, Bella Abzug, of course, Gloria Steinem, women of different backgrounds, different races. But it's based on a woman's photography, and it's doing exactly that same thing that you're talking about, Carol, that it was a project trying to broaden the view of women. And it had everything from nudes, full nudes, to women fully dressed and doing whatever, being mothers, the full spectrum. But there's that side of it. Then to me, what Pete was saying about, or what you actually brought up, can you tell? It's funny because I'm doing to set up my website, which is going live today, an exercise to create a vision board of the photographers I like and so on. And one of the photographers on Tumblr, a Tumblr photographer, one of the first ones I started to follow, was A Little Taste of Mint, which again, from her Tumblr, you wouldn't know that it's Lena. And to me, she does the kind of photography that I eventually love to do. I don't want to say the most, but it's, I think, what most people think of when they look at my photography, when they think of me as a photographer, is the urban geometry. And I don't think for a second you could look at one of her pictures and look at one of my pictures and know, you know, was it a man or a woman who shot either one of these images? I think maybe the assumption might be made that it's a more masculine style of photography. I don't know if you're both familiar with her work, but hers is very angular, mostly black and white, clean lines. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. However, what I still think is missing is, for example, yes, I think there's more exposure to women, but on YouTube, I mean, I follow several people on photographers on YouTube, and I you know, a lot of which I every once in a while would reblog on Tumblr some of these photography educational videos, but they're mostly men. And then, for example, Tony and oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. Chelsea Northrup. They're a couple. So the Northrups, you know, sometimes he'll do the geekier because he is a hardcore technical geek. I mean, sometimes it's like, dude, speak English. And she is the more human. No, oh, come on, yes. Some of his videos are so hardcore. Yeah, oh yeah. You're shaking your head because you understand it. For someone like me, it's like, dude. And he's upfront about it.
And you need to watch my videos because I explain whenever I sit down to make a concept for a video. I think, how would I explain this to Fern? So that was a joke. Yeah.
No, but I'm not a technical
I
photographer.
try to explain stuff in a way so that everyone can understand it. So
But yeah, so
but can I chime in here? Because I
Yeah.
don't want to advertise my own videos on my own channel. That would be just legit, right? But the thing is, that was indeed one of the reasons why I started to make my videos, is because, yes, I know a bit about the technical stuff and understand a bit what these people are talking about. But even I sit there and sometimes have to think about what exactly do they mean? What does that really mean? So just wanted to say that. Sorry that I interrupted. It didn't have anything to do with the topic.
No,
Where I
but
miss. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
No, it's just that where I miss women is more on position where they decide to exhibit photograph, men of women. But except for, if I look here in Holland, where it's almost 100% women, the rest of galleries or museum, it's, how do you say that, directed by men. There I miss women. There are really a lot of women photographers and very talented and really for all taste. But those who decided, yeah, go.
No, finish. But because that's something that I would love to chime in here. But please finish first.
No, it's just going to repeat myself. It's just that if I look at the museum here in Holland, who has an interest in photography, curator or director are men and not women.
Wait, hold on. Jennifer, hi. Are you with us?
Hello.
Okay.
Jennifer?
Hello.
Oh.
Can
I thought maybe it was the cutout of you.
read a couple?
You're so quiet.
So much going on the chat. I don't want to miss that. First of all, hello everyone on the chat. Please excuse that I probably won't mention all of you today because, well, we were on the chat before we started already. So there's the thing before, because the chat, I don't want. Let's keep up with the chat before we proceed.
Yes.
Mark Room, I don't know how to pronounce that. My English is bad. Mark Room, whatever. I'm sorry, Mark. Mark writes, maybe in terms of street photography, it would be easier to distinguish, but otherwise not. It was about female photographer or male photographer, man photographer, women photographer. Amy Montico writes, I agree with that. Women are less intimidating, but we can also be more vulnerable, not just physically, but emotionally. That was because of what you mentioned, Fern, the episode of someone taking a couple going out and shooting, having a woman with us. Yeah, that you answered that. Yeah, Amy, that was the article's point. She felt the same. Lyndon Ardens highlights writes, often I don't even know whether a Tumblr photographer is male or female. Same, right? Because you usually only see the screen names, and how can you? And it to me personally, I have to say that to me it doesn't matter, right? Whether it's about the photos.
Yes, exactly. But then why is it so difficult to be exhibited? You know, because exactly when you look at the
You mean exhibitions in outside of the web?
yes, because the web is the perfect place to show your work on Tumblr, on Instagram, or whatever.
Right, that's what I also feel. I mean, there's so much liberation on the web because it doesn't matter. People
Exactly, because we just look at the picture. We are just focused on the picture and not on the photograph and what's his life or her life or, you know, whatever. Or does he have a dog or does she like coffee? No, it doesn't matter. It's just the emotion that you feel when you look at the picture. That
Well,
is actually awesome, I think.
yes, and when you're and that's a good point, because on the web, I mean, exactly, with the whole genderless and everything, but once you try to break into photography,
Mm.
and once you put your name on that line, and it's Juan or Juanita,
Right.
okay, or then all of a sudden, oh, or it's, you know, it's John Smith as opposed to Fernando Socorro, or Maria Socorro, let's say, where all of a sudden all kinds of, you know, or any sort of, let's say you have you're from the Middle East, and you, what are, because again, these are things that study on study on study have shown that even reading someone's name, you make assumptions about the person immediately.
Yeah.
Most of us do, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
So because Carol, here's the thing that you made me think about, or Carol, here's what you made me think about, with the exhibition at I want to
Foam.
say Steam. Foam,
Rijksmuseum.
thank you. Oh no, I'm getting a call. Hold on.
He's
Yo,
busy.
I'll call you later.
Not now.
Hey, I'll call you. I'm on YouTube right now with two other people and someone who's kind of interesting, Jason. I'll call you back, okay?
Bye-bye. Doodaloo.
Bye. So
I saw another comment here that fits perfectly. That fits perfectly. Lyndon Arden's highlights wrote, I usually have to follow for a while before I have an idea as to gender, and Biostat Prof writes, I had a couple of very fun interactions with Nature Lover 69 this last week and was wondering if she was a she or he. It was easier to find out she's in Iowa. So that's a thing. That's indeed a thing. We often, I don't really talk too much and with too many people on Tumblr, but
did you just say you don't talk too much?
On Tumblr, that's what I said. That if you would stop talking and listening, then half of your questions would be solved, right? The thing is, by the way, I got a phone. I've got a call at the moment. I will answer that later. And you talk with people like sometimes for weeks or months, and you don't even know their name. What happens to me, right? If I'm of the opinion, if someone wants to tell me their name, then they will, and if they don't tell me, and if it's not on their blog, then it's nothing they want to share. And so I personally find that very, very appealing. Let me see if there's anything else. Lena does some of the best photography of any kind on Tumblr. Absolutely agreed. A little taste of mint. That's what Lyndon Arden's highlights writes, and it's without any gender identification. Absolutely. Waylon Whitney writes, recently saw an exhibition of women artists in Paris, 1850 to 1900. Women artists of the time were not allowed to paint certain subjects. Yeah, sadly, we were at that. But that's also something, and I wrote it down on my tablet, so that's something I would love to go into.
But it's also the interpretation of what we represent. I just read a little introduction to the work of Georgia O'Keeffe. She was not a photographer, but a painter. And actually, her work was so incredibly sexualized by her husband, but she never meant to do something really sexual. But he put a lot of blah blah on it, and then all the critics. So, I mean, just because she was a woman, and then she painted flowers.
George O'Keeffe, same thing.
Yes,
that's why she stopped. Yes, thank you. That's why she stopped painting the flowers. She actually stopped painting for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Because of the same thing. What's her face, Steichen or whatever his name is, sexualized her, the nude pictures of her, and then all of a sudden, same thing. I do want to go back to the difference between the web and its freedom and the reality of women and what they face. And I want to go back to Chelsea Northrup, because here's my point about this and about YouTube in general. I don't know if any of you follow the Northrups. Highly recommend it, by the way, because they do have some great technical and sometimes just other topics. And Chelsea, in her own very flip, very non-intellectual way, is brilliant. She comes up with some incredible insights on the human side of photography, if you will. So they're a great balance, by the way, between Tony and her. But what's fascinating to me is the comments, the vitriol, the hatefulness that comes up in a lot of the comments. And how does that reflect the fact that really, again, on YouTube, how many women post videos about photography as opposed to men? There's this young woman who I've actually posted a couple of videos of hers on Luxlit over the last, I think, year. But where are the women in the professional side? There's no argument about the web. But where's the rep? Because that's why I brought up the models for women photographers, because foam, that's the other thing I was going to say. The foam exhibit, yes, there was that wonderful photographer, which Carol and I both agreed was pretty much the best one of all the ones who were featured. But correct me if I'm... Thank you. Weren't the rest of the photographers men at foam?
I think...
And
well, there were, you know, that the exhibition was like a retrospective, and it was a bit mixed.
Right.
And then the first floor, it was a man, and then completely upstairs in the smallest room, that was Santa Simon. Yeah, that's true.
Ding, ding, ding! In the smallest room upstairs, and that's the thing. Her photographs, and we both agreed on this, which doesn't mean much because it's our personal taste and we happen to agree, were the best.
Yes, I'm going to write her name here, Santa Simon. Voilà, bam, in the chat.
So anyway, Jennifer.
Point.
Which one?
The comment, the sexism, I think is. Hold on. I just have to say, wow. First of all,
Jennifer's referring to Mark. I'm sorry. Mark wrote the sexism, I think, is a big problem in that women are maybe more hesitant to reveal their gender in order to negate the possible harassment? Question mark. Question mark from Mark.
I think that some women might feel that way. Why? How sometimes Tumblr is very not gender identified with blog names. Yeah, I think that was it is pretty awesome that you can go for so long with not knowing someone's name, or because it's about the images, it's about the art of it, the photography. So it's pretty cool.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
Harassment on Tumblr, I guess, yes, there is to that. But
right. Okay. Let me wrap up the chat if I forgot something. Please, lovely people on the chat, in case I forget someone or something relevant, then it's not on purpose. We had a pretty interesting that we probably will go into later a bit more by Stacey Lynn, talking about shooting with phones, how much. So she mentioned Jennifer's photos. Jennifer, who shoots mostly or exclusively with her phone, and she wrote that these photos are stunning, which I absolutely agree with. And so there's a question. I think I mentioned it before in my hour-long monologue, that I think that because photography has become more affordable and more available, the possibilities, that this also helped a lot with the liberation for women. I I think because we have a phone photographer now on the video, so let's talk about that a bit later as well. So what I wanted to say, there's something that came to my mind yesterday because, well, while I'm only seriously into photography for about 10 years now, as long as I can remember back, I did lots of other artsy stuff, starting with doodling, drawing, cartoons, stuff like that. Writing, and well, 20 years of theater and stuff. And I always did that with other people. So rarely did, well, drawing is something that you do alone, right, in your room. But what I realized that when it was like the 10th anniversary of my graduation, when all got together, right? So all the people, and even those people that you did these kind of art projects with, and you meet them all, and none of them, not I was the only, no, that's not true. One other person did that as well. But of all these people, there were just two guys who continued doing artsy stuff. And a lot of the women were in some way still engaged in doing things. Some painted, others were musicians, some more, some to a lesser degree being involved. So that is something that I found really interesting to observe that, and I think that also plays into the whole why are men the ones who run galleries? I think that, at least it's my impression, I can be wrong, of course, and it's by no means a scientific exploration or anything like that, but it's my personal feeling that I have, that men are more likely to make something to a job. And if it's art, then art is their job. And if they can't make it a job, then they will skip it completely. Other than soccer, of course. That's soccer and beer are the only two things that guys do from the first moment they're allowed to till their last breath, I guess.
Some women as well, you know.
Well, I know some, yes. So, and some men don't.
Exactly.
Like this guy. Well, beer, of course, but football, no.
No,
but we
but
also have, sorry. We also have beer drinking soccer fanatics who are also photographers. Cough, cough. Heiko, cough, cough. Who we had on the show last time.
But I think we are living now in a time where everything is open and more open, fortunately. So soccer is no longer only for men, and photography is just a way to express yourself, or to show the world the way you see it. And there are, yes, I think it's one of the few things where you can totally liberate yourself, and it doesn't matter who you are. And I know a few female photographers, and they are really working hard, and they all say, I spend 20% of my time doing what I love the most, and that is photography, and 80% of my time just doing hard work to contact galleries or museum, or to be in the business, to have more and more exposure. So they might not open their own galleries, but they are really working hard, and not only on making special work, but really to be seen. What do you think, Jennifer?
I'm sorry.
I don't go to very many galleries, to be honest. For the most part, I've been in photography for a really long time, interested, but really started to take it very seriously in the last few years. So now, I have visited a couple galleries. You
Okay.
So Jennifer, let me ask you then. So since you're starting to explore it now, do you go out of your way to find women photographers, or do you think it is easy? Because we can name a few great women photographers. Uh, Annie Leibovitz, ¿cómo se llama esta mujer? Who shot the people, the photos of people who looked very weird. Um, you
That
know who
was
I'm talking
me.
about? Who committed?
That was me
No,
when
who?
you visited. Then I
No,
took photos of people who looked very weird.
no,
At least
it's
one of them.
Diane Arbus.
Oh yeah.
Stop it. Diane Arbus, again, Imogen Cunningham. Um, uh, but the bottom line is how many, just like with women painters, or women film directors, it's not just a photography issue, by the way. How many of us can name 3 women directors, or let's say 5 women directors? And now there's a whole bunch more than there used to be. How many, if you go out on the street and ask people to name 5 women directors, who can do that? You know what I mean? How many people can name 5 women photographers? So Jennifer, my question to you is, do do you find women photographers easily? Do you have to go out looking for them, or do you even think about that when you're looking at photography? Do you care? Which goes back to Carol's question. Do you care? Yeah, yeah. Jennifer.
I I do not care. Uh, Male, female, I'm looking at the image. I maybe come to an assumption over an image if it's softer or more feminine or not as deeply contrast, that yes, maybe this was shot by a female. Other than that, it's just the image. Um,
Yes.
so
Yeah. For me too. But what I'm wonder when I meet women who uh, are photographer and they do it as a job is how do they combine a family life? It's really domestic question, but how can you combine to travel and to have kids and to do all the things and the hard work, because it's a lot of work. If you to post on Tumblr, it's really easy. I mean, and it's really kind and it's a very gentle community. But if you go out of the gentle community of Tumblr, of Instagram, then it's quite hard. At least it's my experience. And then it's more, how do you survive? How do you, how do you find your own way in this jungle? But also to
yeah,
combine. But I mean, it's for everything.
yeah, I would have to agree.
Check, check.
But that's an interesting take, for the simple reason, at least as I see it, that if we're talking about that, it seems not. It seems to be the same in photography as it is with everything else. It is definitely harder for women to really immerse themselves into something other than what has been accepted by society for centuries. And so to break out of that and to find their own voice and to find their place and to be accepted, as and I think that's the thing. And the fact alone that we talk about women in photography shows that we're by far not where we should be, in terms of that. It's Why is that still in the 21st century a topic? We should be, well, we have come a long way, but it shouldn't be an issue at all. It should be just as normal. And was Fern mentioned, I couldn't, and I'm kind of a movie geek, but I think I'd have, I don't know if I could come up with 5 female directors, movie directors, and absolutely probably it would take me longer to think of 5 female photographers. So why is that? Well, why is that? I think my explanation is that um, we, we are by far not where we should be, and that the whole liberation part has only begun. So I think we're in a good way, but by far not where we should be. There's a question that I have that belongs to that topic, and also to get a bit back to the whole question of of yeah, topics, that the differences in topics. What came to my mind is, and I'm curious if you see it the same way. Well, photography still is male dominated. Okay, absolutely, but there was a time when it was even worse. And I think that the whole picture of women, the representation of women in photography, has changed massively and drastically with more women photographers. And at least that's how I feel it. And my explanation is, and that's my question: do we see it similarly, or do you see it in a completely different way? That when a man photographs a woman, especially a heterosexual man photographs women, it will almost certainly be a pretty picture of a good-looking woman. While when women do that, they will bring in more reality. So the question is rather not, will I present this person as feminine and as beautiful as ever? Feminine, please understand feminine as how society sees femininity, yeah, and not necessarily what that means in real life. And you probably guessed that I'm pretty much a feminist, but I have to be. I have 2 sisters, right? So I was punished. No, I'm convinced. I wasn't forced to. And when a woman does that, they bring in much more reality, much more depth, and much less of a facade or facade, and much less of a mask, and really showing the person, and not how this person wants to be seen by society, in case that made sense.
You never make sense, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead. Answer, please.
That was my question.
So your question, can you summarize it? Because I must say I'm a bit lost.
Yeah, okay.
Somewhere
I understand
between
that.
I got lost.
I'm confused myself. No, my question was whether you agree with my notion that when women photographer became more and more, that the image of women in photography, so the way women are represented on photographs, changed more into reality rather than the fantasy picture that probably most straight male photographers would do.
I don't know.
Well, and I would add gay male photographers, because here's the thing: the bottom line is that the standards of beauty, as a gay man, I was raised in a straight world, and for me, a hot woman is still to this day Ursula Andress, You know what I mean? To me, she is the epitome of sex and the gorgeous woman. Not that there aren't other standards, but that's the standard I grew up with. And when gay male photographers take pictures of women, what are they taking pictures of? The beauty, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to say that it's not just that it's a more blurred line. I think there's the man view, which is based on the images of beauty, and then which is your question, you know, what the representations by women. Hit it. Sorry, what do you think, Jennifer? What do you think?
I think the comments are overwhelming right now. First of all, I'm trying to. I'm sorry. So I know Lyndon had said a description of what a feminine image is. In my opinion, it's something softer, something more emotional, as you're maybe what I believe touching on, where you get to know the person rather than just the body. I think that is a feminine image.
But can a man make a feminine image? Or do men make quote unquote feminine images? And do women make the more masculine images? I mean, is that, do you know what I mean?
Artist. I would say I've seen, but to me, masculine is a little more hard edges, and you know, with feminine image, you're going to have a little softness to it, you know, and that's just the image itself, not the photographer.
So it's not an indication of their sex. It's not so you can see a soft image, and it could be either a man or a woman who created it. Yes, is that what you're saying?
More the I guess the yeah, not really the person who's shooting it, but the subject could be more feminine or masculine. So it didn't really, you know, I don't think the man versus woman shooting behind the camera, then really the image. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And actually, going back to Carol and mine's hero, Georgia O'Keeffe, while she painted a lot of beautifully curvy, sumptuous images of flowers and fruit and so on, some of her images that are my favorite, actually one of the ones that made me cry when I went to see her exhibit at the De Young 4 years ago, was of the farmhouses. And those are angles, sharp blocks of color, very, if you will, masculine in their feel. So yes, yes. That's well, and again, Lena. Yeah. Lena and her in photography, you know, she's very angular. But I was also thinking, Pete, when you were talking about the nudes, there's two things, and one of them is
I wasn't sorry to interrupt. I wasn't necessarily talking about nudes.
Well, no, you were talking about women. Sorry,
I was talking about depiction of women, and just because it was just in the chat, maybe I worded that wrong. Maybe I worded what I meant wrong. Roy Linden Arden's highlights wrote, "Isn't that something of a sexist assumption that male will photography women primarily as beautiful objects?" Maybe I made that, maybe I worded it that way. If I worded it this way, then I apologize. I didn't mean to make this assumption or make this assertion. It was the feeling that I have that it, and I think I'm not wrong that the tendency was that way before, but I can be wrong. I didn't make a scientific study of that, and that would be I'm sure there are studies like that. It was a question that I asked, and it is definitely the feeling that I have. But maybe, yes, maybe I'm wrong. That's why I asked the question.
And here's the thing, and I think it's men and women, but when I was, and I wrote about just a small post about it on Tumblr, when I was at which broke my heart, really, in a sad way. When I was at the Helmut Newton, oh, we lost Jennifer, at the Helmut Newton Museum to see the fashion photography exhibit in Berlin, what struck me was that the soon as you walk in, the 4 images that you see just in the foyer are these huge, I want to say 10-foot tall black and white images of 4 gorgeous nude female models, not male, but female. And to me, it struck me like, okay, so this is what Helmut, which it's not, by the way, but this is what Helmut Newton is all about, just 4 hot women. Why did I pay my money to come in here? I mean, it was a letdown. And then seeing the images mostly by men, because let's face it, most fashion photographers, for whatever reason, just like most fashion designers, which really bends my mind, are women overwhelmingly, are images of beauty and representation. Whether those men, again, whether those men are gay or straight, it's still this fetishized image of women in a certain way, and that standard of beauty changes. But the bottom line is, it's dictated, and that's not a pun, by men, and within a very heterosexual.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
completely. But you see, this also in literature. I was reading the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, and so I don't know if you are familiar with it, but they got married, and then she died, and she goes to the underworld, and Orpheus, who has a magnificent voice, can seduce the gods of the underworld and liberate her. But he has to promise to not go back until they are back on Earth. And he's a human and he's a man. He has failure. So he looked back. And Eurydice died for the second time. But what is written is that, okay, she dies for the second time, but she's not sad because she was loved by a man. But it's everywhere. And I thought, no, Eurydice, what is she thinking? She's saying, why did I marry that stupid guy? But it's everywhere. No, but we grow up with those kind of images that the men are above us, or they are that special places for them. But the entire literature and the whole education system and everything has been written by men. So we have so much in our backgrounds, in our head, and the way we consider things. But fortunately, it's changing, and I'm really curious to see what will be the representation of the women body and the men body in 20 years, because probably we will have a completely different conversation. Maybe we should make a date for...
Yes. So I do want to add, so that you brought up 2 things, and I keep wanting to bring her up, but the conversation keeps going. Krina Prida, when you look at her photography, it's still a lot of nude women. There's a lot of nudity. It's a lot of beauty shots. But are those equivalent to, say, would you see those photographs in a fashion magazine? Because that was what really struck me, that here was a man, Helmut Newton, and some of these other photographers. Helmut Newton represented women in S&M, bondage, brutal. There's the one image of Catherine Deneuve with a gun pointing at her, and I'm sitting there going, why is this fashion again? My thought was, it broke my heart, because I was sitting there going, really? So and these are the images in fashion magazines. And here's another thing so there's Krina Prida, and then another thing going back to the broader view of photographers and women versus men. Not women versus men, but their representation and their present and their acceptance. How many in movies, how many films have been made where the man is a photographer, the lead role is a photographer, or one of the important roles is a photographer, and they're almost always men. And when you look at the women photographers in film, there's that I can think of, there may be more, the ¿Cómo se llama esta película? With
No
Faye
sabe.
Dunaway. No, the one with Faye Dunaway, Eyes of Laura Mars. And what is the Eyes of Laura Mars about? This woman being persecuted and who has visions of this man who is brutally killing people, and she winds up being his victim. And it's all about the love and the emotional stuff with photography based on, by the way, Helmut Newton's photography. And he was one of the advisors for the film. The other one I can think of is, and I can't remember the name of it, there's a film, it's a lesbian love story, and it's these two women, and one of them is one of the actresses who was in Breakfast Club. Can't remember her name. But really, again, that's it. Even in you know what I mean? It's just, the more I think about this now, the more it just blows my mind that something like that is, again, where are the women photographers?
Yeah, just one thing, because you were talking about fashion and how women are represented, but a lot of fashion magazines have women on top. I mean, what's her name? Karin Reutefeldt. She's the one who introduced the porn trash, or I don't know how you call it, with really a bit violent photography. So it's not only men, and yeah, and I think it's also very cultural related. If I'm French and I live in Holland, I'm married with a Dutch guy, and just that, it's if I see just, I mean, in life, how Dutch men in general, so, but they are completely different than French. So there is also that aspect, I think, of cultural. And
That's interesting, because you made me realize that the one of the people, and she was the editor for, I want to say, Italian Vogue. I think it was Franca. Can't remember her last. Yes, and actually, excellent documentary based on her life on Netflix also.
Yes.
But it was her photography collection that was being featured at the Helmut Newton Museum, and again, that struck me too. That here's this woman who collected all these images that were so sexualizing and fetishizing and in some ways violent against women. And yet it was a woman who collected these. Franca, what is her last name? But anyway, the other thing I wanted,
something like that.
Something like that. The flip side to that is, which is again something that just, and not because I'm a gay man and like to look at hot men, but where are the photographs of nude men? The objectification almost always seems to be of, like Pete said, of beautiful women. What are you hiding? Oh, Pete's gone. So how again is that representative of gendering of photography? Let's not even talk about of the masculine versus the feminine, of gendering of photography. Am I missing something, or yeah? Jennifer, the quiet one. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, we had a complaint on the chat that, and I read that from the chat.
Sure.
Heiko complained, and I have to scroll up. Give me a moment. You have two women on the show. Why are the guys mostly making assumptions, or let's call it interpret, about women and their art? That kind of bothers me a bit. So I will shut up for the rest of the stream, and I'll let you women talk.
Oh.
No, it's. I mean, it's a legit. I don't really see it in the way that we interpret women in their art, but if it comes across that way, and I really don't mean that in a sarcastic way. It's.
I did not have that impression myself, and I don't feel like a woman or like a man. I have to say, it's really I'm me, and yeah.
Well, so Heiko, I did think about this, and one of the things I thought would have been really interesting to do, I have to say, was to just hand it over to them. But here's the thing. And it goes back to my question about things like YouTube and where are the women.
Maybe you did not find them on YouTube, Fern. Maybe they are.
No,
It's
yeah.
a big place. Maybe you should search.
Oh yeah,
more.
no, I do. But how do you? But here's the thing with our conversation InConversation today, and this was what I thought. I thought, Pete and I have been doing this for a while. Pete and I, for example, with Christina, it wasn't that much of an issue. I think we could have told Christina, here, you talk for 2 hours. You have your issues, and you tell us and you ask us, because Christina, it just has that personality. She's been doing research for years, blah, blah, blah. So not everybody, I mean, the fact that these two participants, our two guests, have had the courage to appear. I mean, Pete and I go crazy before every one of these, because we get nervous and we get excited. And I think, no, we do. I mean, I freak out. I do. I do. But for y'all to be on the first time and to have that pressure of then feeling we need to, you know what I mean? We need to generate ideas. I did think about that. I thought, would that be, I guess, for lack of a better term, fair? And I don't think it would be fair if it was men being on the panel too, or being part of our conversation, because unless we prepared you for it, let's say, unless we told you, hey, would you be willing to do this, blah, 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 blah. But it does put you on the spot. And so I don't know, how do you two feel about that? That's an excellent question.
I would have to thank for not putting us on the spot like that. There was a moment where I thought that might be happening today. Just hand over the floor, because the topic is for women. And but I'm first time jitters, you're right. So very glad that you guys are here. You guys do this a little more often, and for me this is I wouldn't be able to hold the conversation the entire time. But as women in photography, my opinion as far as myself goes, I do believe that I would have things a little bit easier, time to approach or to make people more comfortable with taking a photograph of them. I believe that women photographers just in general are a great support system. I don't know many in person around me that are, in my vicinity that I talk to as photographers, but the women photographers that I've met on Tumblr are extremely supportive. The men are as well, but women, there is a little more emotion, I think, with women. We can all agree. And so it comes through in the images, it comes through in all of it. And
Yeah, I agree with that emotion part, because what I noticed already is when I have feedback on my photos or comments, very often men focus on the technique, or they appreciate the technique, if I master it or not, or if it's clean, if it's precise. And women are more in the emotion, what they felt with the picture. But it's not always, but yes, it has a little bit that tendency. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm legitimate to talk about women in photography, or because again, I don't feel like, okay, I'm a woman, but I don't see myself like this, and I'm not looking specially for contact with other women photographers. And if I have, it's great, and it doesn't matter for me, as long as the vibe is good, or it's all about the photography itself, the photos.
Yeah, not male or female. We're all human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's and especially on internet, on the web. When it's out of the web, then yes, if you go to a portfolio review and you're in front of a man, it might sometimes be different than with women. Not always, because women can be really hard, and men can sense, or at least it's my own experience, that I had once a portfolio review with two women. They were really hard on me. And just after, it was with a man. And he was so sweet. And he could feel that I was completely scared and I had absolutely zero self confidence. And he really cheered me up. And so, yeah, I don't think there is a really strict line and strict rules. But I guess what it's nice on the web is that it's yeah, it's like a gender neutral, and we support each other as photographer.
Yeah.
And there is no seduction. There is no, that thing that could make you feel uncomfortable if it's not on the web, because we have not a body. We don't have a face. It's just our photos, and we support each other just for the art of photography. And that is great, I think, when you can forget your own body and your face and just focus on what you want to communicate.
Mark writes on the chat. I think it was directed. It was a question for you, Carol.
Oh,
Do you find sometimes women can be more critical of other women than men?
yes, yes. Sometimes I feel that they can be harder, really, than it's like if they they had to work so hard or harder, to get there, that they expect you to be so strong and so you have to be tough and empowered and all that things. And yes, definitely not everybody. Again, it's really difficult to make a I don't want to make a statement or something like that, but I met some women who were really hard and some men who were more sensitive, I guess. But I also had one time a portfolio review with a man who was really, really an ass, really. And he was, no, seriously. Oh, I had to bite my cheek to not cry in front of him because I thought, oh, he would be so happy to see me crying. So, but women can be really hard, really, and especially if you show that you are nervous and oh, you are not so sure, or I don't know, then you're dead.
Amy
Yeah.
Montico writes on the chat as an answer to Mark. Insecure women, very much so. Mark, women can be brutal. That's what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wanted to add that's not just a thing with, for example, women, which is interesting to me, women critiquing women, let's say, or working with women. A lot of times that can also be for the same reasons Carol said, that let's say these individuals have worked so hard that they feel and they've struggled to get to where they are. And I will add this though, I don't think it's done from a evil place necessarily, but it's because they've had to face all of these. They expect you to be there. But I think when you're dealing, like for example, here in the U.S., where non-white identities are the minority, when you're dealing with, let's say in my case, I'm Cuban. If a Cuban was critiquing me or working with me or whatever, sometimes they would push me harder or be meaner or be more poof, 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 like you said, simply because they that's the only way they know how to maybe communicate that, because that's what they've been through.
Yeah.
So it's not just the gender thing. It's really a positional, which again, gender, positional thing where you've had to go through these things as someone who's not part of the mainstream, and so that's in a maybe misguided but well-intentioned way, the way you treat others to help them come up, because you have to be strong to be, to be whatever, and it's so it's a I understood that completely coming from that another side. Just yes. So anyway, yeah, that's interesting though. I hadn't thought about that.
But what's a thing, or might be a thing? I mean, so also on the chat, Heiko writes, basically it doesn't matter what gender, men and women can be tough on you. Yes, they can, but I think that's also is a bit my experience at work, because who has where are the quarrels? They're either between women and women or between men and men. And I think it's one very simple explanation for that, and it's certainly not everything, but it is one point. As a man, I know which buttons to press with another man to make them furious, and I think that's with women. It's a similar thing. So we know each other's weaknesses much better, so we can trigger them much easier, and so maybe it seems as if women are harder on women than men on women, or men are harder on men than men on women. But maybe it's just the thing that you just know where to pinch the knife in where it hurts most, right?
You're a mean person, aren't you?
Why? I don't say that I do. I say I saw that at work. I never engage in anything like that. I'm the sweetest person that you can imagine at work.
I think, yeah, we know how to push each other's buttons, so it would be easier to hit them where it hurts. We can relate to what would hurt us.
And also, and actually this blends, I was just reminded, I don't know if any of you know who Gabrielle Union is. She is a brilliant actress, has been in some really good movies, is in her own TV series now called Being Mary Jane. And she was in one of my favorite films ever, Bring It On. And she was talking there was four, I think it was her, Oprah, Felicia Rashad, and I can't remember who the other actress is, four African-American actresses. And they were talking about, at one point, how Gabrielle Union had made a speech in the, I think it was the NAACP awards, where she was, somehow, and Gabrielle Union said, you know, I have realized now that I, as a Black woman, often wanted other Black women to lose and to be bad or whatever, so that then I could get their role and I could get the recognition. And I think that's also a sad fact as well. When you're not a part of the mainstream, you, and it's interesting because in her case, it's because she's a woman and because she's Black, you know, you have that professional envy and that professional fear of this person is coming up and could very well supplant me and take over my position, because there's only one or two spots for us. So there's also that very sad part of it too as well. Anyway, just wanted to add that.
So the competition is hard. Sorry, the competition is harder. It's interesting. Yeah, could be indeed. By the way, in case you're asking yourself, many people on a Saturday evening, because it's evening here, right? They do what people do. They have a date. I don't. I'm talking with you and have dates.
Oh my God. By the way, speaking of all of that, how much longer are we going to talk? Because we're going to do the critiques next, but we should take a bathroom break.
I have time.
Actually, I need a break from you, Pete, but you know that.
Almost didn't talk at all today.
No, I'm not.
I'm here having dates.
I could almost
reading the chat and switching the camera, which I most of the time forgot.
What did you say, Jennifer?
I said I could almost believe that, Pete.
Almost. See, that's a thing, from going from nothing to almost. That's good. Next step will be, we'll believe you totally. And we're going to do that next time. Making Fern laugh is my second favorite. Making Fern laugh, I have to say it like it is. Making Fern laugh is my second favorite thing in the world. My first favorite thing in the world is seeing him cry on the on the InConversations. That's always
Which I
like,
haven't cried today.
you haven't cried today.
No, I haven't cried today. But you just brought it up, and you almost made me want to do it.
Heiko writes, I wish Fern would have talked as much as Jennifer. I just let.
So do I. I don't really. But you know what? In Heiko, it goes back to your comment, and maybe I'm looking at this wrong, and maybe y'all might give me a suggestion. But honestly, when it's just Pete and I talking here, or for example, when it was the four of us together last time, it was different because you're in the same room, and even then, I tend to, and maybe I shouldn't do this, but I tend to, when I'm with this, I tend to get into teacher mode, and I tend to really pay attention to really pay attention to the people who aren't talking and who, you know what I mean, who aren't participating.
To the point, Fern, to the point.
Yes, but well, no. But the bottom line is, also as in teacher mode, I know that not everybody wants to talk, even if they have something to say. And so that's the way I look at what I do sometimes here, where I'll try to direct traffic and say, okay, Pete, you're saying this, but what about, like I did with Jennifer a couple of times, because I don't want to put her on the spot, but I also.
But Jennifer, how do you feel? How do you feel?
Yeah.
How do I feel?
Yeah.
I feel great.
Like a natural woman.
Just enjoying Fern laughing while he's muted.
Yeah, because you don't want to hear me choking while I'm laughing. But yeah, no, I mean, you know, so yeah, that's the whole point. That, yeah. So anyway, so how much longer are we going to talk? And then, because remember, for the critiques, it's 3 minutes for picture, and we have, I think, 7, 8 pictures. Because the A and B ones, I think there's 3-1 and 3-2. There's 2. There's Pete, you have to make a choice as to which one we're going to look at, or do you want me to make the choice?
We're going to talk about how we do the critiques later. We don't have to do that on camera.
Okay.
There's 2 things. For those of you who don't know what we are talking about, and I just saw about that Prof sent something to the chat. There's a skill or set of skills to radio. One can never leave dead air and must always have something to say. It's not a skill set when all grow up with. I don't get it, but yes, it's about having to talk while being on air, I guess. I'm sorry, I just simply don't get it. It is me. It's not because of you. It's because of me, because I'm stupid. And I mean that. No, there's one thing we're gonna talk. After the show, we will do a critiquing session, photo critiquing session. It will not be live unless Fern chooses to do that also live. I don't know if he will grant people to watch it. I don't know. I can say he will be posting that too. Well, you will not be posting it. He will be posting it when it's edited. So in case you want to watch, then message QBN-Scholar on Tumblr. Maybe he will do that. I can't say that, and I won't decide that. What I want to go into, because that was on the chat, it was a big issue. It doesn't necessarily have to do with women in photography or photography of women. I nevertheless think it's an interesting thing, because I know a lot of women on Tumblr and on social media. Well, I'm only on Tumblr. I'm not on any other social media platform.
You never post on Instagram.
I'm not on Instagram. No, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I used to be on Flickr and I used to be on 500px, but I'm not anymore. I had an Instagram account, but that is years ago. I think it's still out there, but I don't even
Yes,
know
it's still
my
out, but
login.
oh,
I don't even know my login, and I have no idea how to log in there because it was connected to my Facebook. And when I closed my Facebook years
okay,
ago,
whatever.
so
To the
whatever,
point,
right?
please.
To the point, exactly. Thank you, Carol. Push me harder. Um, because I really think that this also comes into that whole thing when we're talking about phone photography, because I know a lot of women, and especially women, and maybe that's just my impression, but from all the blogs I follow, and at the point of till now, it's about 1,000 blogs that I follow on my photography account. Um, Most people that shoot with smartphones, at least that's my impression, are women. And for me, this is kind of that's how the way I interpret it,
Oi,
Aiko.
oi, oi.
But
Watch out
I
with
let
what
you
you're gonna
decide.
say now.
I let you decide. I think that's because women are much more interested in um, doing something, creating something. And if you have a phone and that phone has a camera, then you will probably use that as a tool for your art. While men, and that's also my impression that I have, and maybe it's a German thing, but all people that I know personally here who did that. So now it's just a phone. When I take photos, then I will take that with a real camera, which is bullshit, because you can take amazing photos and make amazing photos with phone cameras, and that people do that women do that men do that. It should be proof enough, right? So do you think,
Ah,
Jennifer, as
the
one
question.
person who mostly shoots with a phone or exclusively shoots with a phone, that phone cameras are a, 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 well, it's a stupid question because everyone knows my answer to that. But do you think that and especially since you shoot yourself, do you think that's it can be a sufficient tool for photography, or do you rather see it as sort of an entry into photography? Or do you think, as a person who shoots mostly with phones or exclusively with phones, that phones can be the tool for someone, and they don't need anything else?
Great question. I
Thank you.
shoot exclusively with my phone. I used to have cameras and I didn't care for carrying all of the stuff around. So I shoot with my phone because I can take it everywhere I go. So if I see something, then it's right there and it's very accessible for me um, to be able to capture the moment right there without having to have extra bags or tripods or anything like that. When I specifically sought after this phone because of the camera, and that was it. That's the reason I bought this phone, is because of the camera spec. I think that it can be a stepping, you know, a step stool to a higher, like I want a camera, I want a lens, I want zoom, I want to be able to do the things that I see, people that inspire me, every day. I see them being able to take shots that I just can't with a phone. So there's a disadvantage, and I don't know if I could, run on this for life with my photography career and Tumblr fame, but I think that it's at least a start to some, and for me it's it's the only way that I go, just because of how I shoot, and what I shoot for is just my adventures and just life in general.
So you I the limitations of your phone. Do you? I mean, obviously you think about it because you did talk about it, but do you see that in a way as an advantage maybe sometimes to finding creative ways to, you know what I mean? How do you navigate that?
I do see it as a learning, because sometimes I know as everybody knows that follows my blog, I do the photo challenges almost every single week. And so at times I feel like I have this disadvantage, which makes me push myself a little bit harder as an artist to be able to pull this shot off with phone and with edit. I can't shoot the moon. It's my only regret. But other than that, I can, as far as pushing myself, yes, I would see it as an advantage at sometimes to be able to push myself a little bit further as an artist and be able to do something that really wows myself, that, wow, I did this on my phone, so yeah.
That's very fascinating that you say that, in terms of that the limitations of your phone are a challenge to you, because that's what I hear a lot, and I only heard that. I only heard that. I don't say that. We have to be cautious, but I only heard that from men so far. So that it's way too easy to shoot with a phone, and my only reply to that is I'm too stupid to take decent photos with my phone. I cannot. I need my DSLR and my set of lenses, and to take decent photos. I see these amazing phone photos everywhere, and I have no idea how people do that, because so that's I think probably what many people do at the moment. They say, well, buy an analog camera and buy film and then learn photography. Maybe I should take my phone out and leave my camera at home and try to learn photography with doing my phone.
Yeah, challenge yourself.
Yeah, I probably should do that. But that's the reason why I left Instagram years ago, because that's what fascinated me with Instagram, was that there are people who only shoot with their phones. And Instagram changed, and now everyone just takes their photos with all sorts of cameras and do all that editing stuff, and it's like, well, it's like every other platform, every other photo platform now, as well, and you have like photos stamp sized on my phone. So that's why I that's the reason why I left Instagram. Thought it I thought it's a fascinating platform for that very specific type of photography, only your phone. But well, that changed, and so I left. That was and I won't come back. I don't like Instagram. So yeah, what else? What have we on the chat? Wayland Whitney, Wayland Whitney wrote, "My wife makes fun of men and their need for long lenses on their cameras." Yeah, I answered that he can tell his wife that I have a pancake lens because I don't need to compensate. But it's a terrible joke, I know. But okay. Mark Rome wrote, "For phones, there are now a lot of tools to improve or maybe upgrade phone photos. Jen and I have spoken about this before, like the moment lenses. I don't know what moment lenses are. I will definitely research that." Wayland Whitney writes, "Is taking photos with a phone like taking photos using only a 50mm lens on a DSLR? You can't be as lazy." Well, I find it harder. I mostly shoot with my well, now at the moment, like in the last 2-3 weeks, I shoot a lot with my new 10 to 18mm wide angle lens, which is a totally different experience. Absolutely different experience. But I love shooting with my 24mm or my 50mm lens because of the because of the picture quality, and because of what I can do with the lenses. too much to get into. I mentioned a couple of months ago in a conversation that I will do a live stream, or maybe we will do a live stream if Fern wants to join, in which we'll talk about lenses, or I talk about lenses with you guys if you want that on the chat so we can interact. So I would really love to do that one, so we can talk about all that. So I will prepare something, and if Fern wants to join, if we want to do that as an in conversation, I'd love to. If not, then I'll do it just myself, and everyone can join. Let's make it as an open invitation thing. But but no, the problem that I have with phone photography is that I don't have all the possibilities my DSLR gives me with shutter speed and with aperture and with what bugs me most is, but that's probably the app that I have, is that I don't have the feeling that I have control over the focus.
Exactly. I have the same. That's why I never shoot with my phone. Well, for my stories on Instagram, I use my phone, but I really like to feel my camera. And I have back pain and neck pain, but still I really like to hold my camera, to have it in my hand, and to have the control, to really have the control on what I'm doing, the settings and everything, the depth of field and the exposition. And that control, I don't know how to get that with my phone, or maybe I should investigate more and try harder, like you said, Jennifer, but I miss this with a phone.
Yeah, and it's funny because Jennifer, like you talked about the fact that the phone could be the gateway drug to the larger equipment. And for about 2 years on my Tumblr, and most of those photos are gone, I was actually shooting, for about a year, I was shooting with my Curve, my little BlackBerry, horrible pictures. But at that time, I thought I liked the limitation of doing this and taking pictures of plants and so on with just this. Then I shot with my Samsung. And then a friend of mine was selling his old D50, the one that I bought and used for 5 years, 6 years, which was already, a very limited camera. But I agree with Carol. I actually used my phone quite a bit when I was on vacation, when I was in Germany and in Amsterdam. But really, there's this feel of the camera that, and I'm not a technical photographer. I have everything usually on aperture priority, and I only have my my 24 to 105 millimeter lens. I don't suffer from gear acquisition syndrome. I'm more of a this looks good photographer than a technical photographer. I understand the technology, but really, like the lens conversation, I would join you, but I would really have not much to contribute because I just shoot with my zoom lens, and that's what I've shot with. Although I will say, when I had the Fuji, which is 35 millimeter equivalent fixed lens, that was cool, but I love my setup the way it is, and I could see myself having this camera and this lens for 5 to 10 years, no problems. And it's limiting as well, which is fine. I can live with that.
Right. Good. Oh. Now we're sorry.
No, cut. Nothing. It's just me. It's my own joke.
It's you. I thought I just heard them because the picture was so tiny. So, I think
it's 1 o'clock, by the way.
Okay, then let's. On the chat. The chat is really going wild. People, I love that. More of that. Heiko wrote, I prefer. No, let's start with Bart. Wayland Whitney wrote, Lightroom on your phone, Pete, full control except for focus. Great tip. Now that I finally have now Lightroom CC, so I will try that. Mark Rome agrees, but says that he still prefers his DSLR. Heiko wrote that he prefers his DSLR but also likes his phone, and says that his photography is different, and that's the interesting thing. That's what interests me, so I will probably indeed try that. And Steffi Ramona wrote, the first 2 years I did shoot only with my phone too, and I learned to concentrate on the picture and not on the technique. Yes.
Yeah, but
That's
you can also shoot on automatic with DSLR, you know, and then
definitely program automatic. If you start out, my tip for you: don't shoot full auto, shoot program automatic. For the reason it does all the same things that full auto does, but you still have a bit of control. You can change the brightness. You can do lots of stuff. So if you shoot automatic, then use program automatic. And if you once you understood program automatic and the exposure compensation, that's to understand, then switch to aperture priority or to time priority. So that was my teaching
then
mode.
manual
And then manual. And then
you
manual.
come to another world.
Right.
Or another
Absolutely.
galaxy.
Definitely.
So I have a question. I'm not talking, but why
Again.
am I seeing me?
What? You
What
what?
have you?
Because I forgot to
I'm
switch
not
the
talking.
cameras. I have to switch cameras manually, and I'm absolutely it's a bit
Switch,
much
please.
reading the
It's
chat,
bugging me.
thinking, talking, listening to you guys. So we need someone. We need someone on the show who switches the camera for us. So maybe. Well, where's the budget for next year? Is it still 0? I should monetize my channel. Maybe I'll earn like 2 cents a year, and then we can pay someone.
But anyway, it's great because now there are so much possibility with a phone, with a drone, you know, with a camera. So it's great. It's only great, right?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that having said, it's all great. I think we're gonna wrap up the show, and because we want to do the photo critiques, and I have to open the window because it's really coming hot in here, even though winter is coming, as you can see. So I have he's hibernating. Little Spike is hibernating. So yeah, thank you all of you on the chat, and of course all of you with me here, with us here on the show. Thank you, Jennifer, nature lover. You will find a link to her blog in the video's description, of course. And we found out that you probably have to be on Tumblr. You have to probably have a Tumblr account to view the blog. So the reason, in case you're not already on Tumblr, to join Tumblr. And then also, please check out Carol's blog, which is, and I forgot it again, the name of the blog.
Reality Beauty Capturer.
Reality Beauty Capturer. Carol is back on
Thank
Tumblr.
You. Yeah.
Thank you for being
and her
on the
Instagram,
show.
by the way.
And don't follow
Thank you,
this
Fern.
guy's blog, which is QB&Scholar, and definitely don't follow my blog, which is twoom.tumblr.com, but please follow luxlit.tumblr.com if you want to see really amazing the selections of the Luxlit team of some of the best photos of original photographers on Tumblr. And if you want to, of course, also check out Photos Worth Seeing on Tumblr, which is also one of these blogs. We try to highlight the interesting photography and really the best photographers, or the most interesting, the best. There's no best photographer. Interesting photographers on Tumblr. So with that having said, again, thank you all on the chat. Thank you.
Merci.
Merci.
Bedankt.
I will memorize that. Thank you, bedankt, merci und Dankeschön from all of us.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Hasta la pasta.
Hasta la pasta. That's cool.
Yes, let's eat pasta. I'm hungry.
Pasta. I had pizza today. So, okay. Because we have like probably about an hour of photo critiques that will, or not, I don't know. So thank you all again to the 550th time. And well, see you next time. We will make a show in December, right, Fern? There will be a show in December, so the last show of this year. So see you then. Maybe see you on any of our blogs. So bye. Till next time.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Don't leave yet.